According to statistics, Africa is the youngest continent in the world with close to 70% of its population 35 years of age or younger. Thus, moving forward, one of the greatest challenges facing governments and policymakers on the African continent today is how to provide opportunities for the continent's more than 200 million youth so they can have decent lives and contribute to the economic and political development of their countries. With that said, let's take a look at what the question of the week was for today's program. In your mind, what are the greatest challenges facing African youth that hinders them from being fully engaged economically and politically? Well, Demi, we got tremendous feedback, and I have to say our social media platforms were flooded with responses from all angles. And let's begin with a comment from Melende Fahad from Uganda, who writes, "As a student, I can frankly tell you that we are always taught the what is and never the how to." Another posting comes from a Straight Talk Africa Facebook fan, Ehimare Enaholo, from Benin City in Nigeria, who talks about the poor access to loans from financial institutions and the inability of governments to create an enabling environment, and also providing the young aspiring entrepreneurs with startup funds that can truly be accessed by potential takers. Well, Jimmy, one talks about the problem of teaching more theory than actually practical knowledge, and another one talks about access to funding, which is absolutely a huge challenge in Africa.
A common thing among a lot of the students that we've been hearing from, and a lot of the youth, Mariama. And, you know, it's a question that boggles the minds of many, but we have experts in the studio today who are going to tell us how we can navigate that very difficult water, it seems. Yeah. Well, in fact, let me pose that question to you, Mr. Sam. What is the responsibility of the African government in trying to ensure that these youth have the education, the opportunities that they need? We know that, say in Senegal, your country, President Macky Sall has committed to ensuring that 30,000 youth have jobs by the end of this year, and then 300,000 by 2017. In Kenya, I know there's also an initiative, 20,000 youth in IT. They've even formed a new city to try to create these opportunities. So is that enough, what the government is doing?
No, it's not enough at all, because I think what is job? Because there are jobs that the low income jobs, they are not something that we should define as job. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned the example of Senegal. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying earlier, in Senegal you have 400,000 people, young people graduating every year from what we call traditional apprenticeship, compared to 7,000 graduating from technical school. So you see the gap. Right, yeah. Pretty much. So the traditional apprenticeship is just somebody who's getting up and just go work for your uncle, for your father.
And there's no record.
But there is no record. You don't document it. It's not something you can eventually teach. Mm-hmm. And it's something that everybody is doing. So there is no market for it. Okay. What the government really needs to do is to work with universities. African universities, they really don't educate for African needs. Recently, yes, we can say the case of South Africa, they're trying. But African universities, they educate for government, for the public sector. In the public sector, the African public sector, actually, they're just employing 10% of the African people, mm-hmm. 10%. And out of that 10%, 5 of them are pretty much adults. Mm-hmm. So you left with 5% youth. So most youth, if you go to North Africa, the youth, they want government job. But in sub-Saharan Africa, mm-hmm. it's totally different. Youth want entrepreneurship, want to be able to have skills they can use to develop their own enterprise, to develop entrepreneurship, which posed the question of which we were discussing earlier, financing.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. So the skill mismatch is already a big problem that the government needs to address first.